Hello again. So what I'm going to do now is close the door. What I'm going to do now is essentially add local color to the grisaille. I'm going to glaze the local color on top of the underpainting, and of course this is what used to be done in the Renaissance. Except that they would do an underpainting in tempera, and then they would glaze oils on top of it. And when this was revealed to me, I realized this. I realized that this would help me understand how to paint clearly. So I'm just glazing colors on. I'm still trying to preserve my whites a bit. Whites of the paper. Quite possibly went a little dark here in my underpainting, a little too enthusiastic perhaps, but maybe not. Of course, when you are painting in this manner, I will come back and touch things up. I mean, I'm just applying it quite mechanically now, you know, the color quite mechanically, but I could come back and I can adjust things. I can make them darker and lighter as I wish. There's a bit of push and pull involved, but this is just a purely mechanical straightforward application of the glaze. And the hope is that it will all come together. I'll repeat this later on with a face by applying skin tones, which is interesting. I didn't preserve enough of a highlight in there. Now, something to consider is that if you look at the photo, there should be, light will come in, hit the tabletop and bounce up, and you see it re-illuminating underneath. But also, it'll bounce back down again, and there will be a certain amount of chroma from the fruit that will be cast into the shadow of the fruit. Just floating this color on, floating it on. I like that word because you keep the brush highly loaded sometimes with watercolor. You can do it dry brush, but when it's nice and wet, the brush, the color kind of floats on the surface of the paper. This bleeding into the fruit there is not necessarily a bad thing, and it could be a complete disaster. I could have perhaps waited for the paint to dry, but I haven't, and that could be problematic, but it could be a good thing. This is the thing with watercolor, it's unusual. There's a kind of a whoops. So you can see it kind of coming together, eh? Oh, what am I doing? Again, there should be a certain amount of the fruit color bouncing down into the shadow. And here, whoops. Soft Bobby. And there should be some orange and yellow in the shadow down here. So there's a kind of a tactile sense to this. Not quite done yet. With these darker pigmented areas, and I'm gonna, whoops, by creating these darks here as well, I'm bringing this apple forward because I'm increasing the contrast. Always a little bit of serendipity involved in watercolor. Perhaps I should have let that dry. Oh, something I forgot about on the banana is the overripe areas. Excuse me. Sneezing. course, this isn't wet anymore, unfortunately, so I'm having to just wet it a bit to keep it soft with the brush. This is the excuse me. Overripe areas of the banana. Now you can work this way. I'm working quickly and it's fairly wet on wet. But I mean, you could dabble as well, you know, dabble with the paint. Do little dabbly things and build it up over long periods of time. It doesn't have to be done as quickly, loosely and roughly as I'm doing it here, because I'm doing it this way simply because my camera will stop working in 15 minutes. I got a little heavy in there, but if I get a little more chroma in there, that looks better, and there's a sense of form, you know. And again, I need to do something with this pepper, something more. To make it feel peppery, a little more chroma color, if you will. I'll leave some little hard lines in there as well. I kind of like that. And I'm not sure how the camera's doing, how much time I have. What I will do here now is just keep going until it stops. Now I can continue to work into this, you know, as it dries, and after I stop this demo, I can just keep going and going, and I don't want to overwork it. Sometimes it's good it's very good to leave a watercolor unfinished. You know, just a little bit high key, a little bit on the looser side. I tend to overwork things. Not a good thing, but I am going a little heavy-handed here again. But that seems to help a little bit. And this seems to help a little bit. And I'll just keep going here at the risk of ruining it. And I'm actually going to add a little bit of chroma in the back. I want to knock the background back a bit, so I'm going to mix not even mix, I'm just going to take a fairly transparent cerulean and add a little bit of blue, maybe a bluey green. A very light bluey, now I'll stick with the cerulean, bluey green tint in behind. And that, you know, the cool recedes, so it seems like a fairly logical choice of color. See how that cool color butting against the warm fruit brings them forward a bit, you know, in addition to the effect of light and shade and overlapping. You know, it pushes the background further back. Yeah, that was probably a good decision. And then we'll call it quits. Bit of an overlap there, kind of accidental, but I don't mind it. You know, see a little overlap in there. This is the thing, you could do the thing 10 times with watercolor and it'll never, well, with any paint really, but it'll never ever be exactly the way you, each iteration would be different. I'm going to knock that back too. Yes, there's a help. And just to balance things a little bit, I think I will also introduce a little bit of blue down here. This might be, there is some blue in this room. I've got my blinds open and the cloudy day, some daylight coming in. There is in fact some blue lighting in the room. That'll do for now. I know I could keep messing around. I could, oh, could I ever? You know, I could cool that down a little bit.